Hey everyone, it's Brooke. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to talk to you about my top 10 books of the year. They are my favorites. They're not necessarily the best. Sean Tan's The Arrival was definitely one of the best things I read this year, but it's not on the list. And I think what this list does is it tells me, or it teaches me something about where my reading has gone, where it's going, what's bringing me joy currently, and making my heart like pitter-patter, and what's staying with me, and what kind of reader I think I am now that the mid-30s are upon me. And so I hope to make this pile really reflect my reading going forward. Like, I want my reading in 2019 to really sort of mirror what's going on over here. So let's start with comics. I'm going to go through them by genre and end with my favorite nonfiction and my favorite fiction books of the year. Comics-wise was interesting. Like I said, Sean Tan's The Arrival was probably the best thing. And I highly recommend it, but it's not my favorite. My 10th favorite, or my first favorite, however you want to look at this, one of my top 2 favorite comics of the year was Making Friends by Kristen Gudsnuk. This is published by Scholastic, and this is just so delightful. I discovered this in December when I was listening to a Best of Comics year-end wrap-up sort of podcast, and I knew that Kristen Gudsnuk had done Hinge Girl, but I'd never read that. But the way that the people in the podcast talked about this really sold me, and so I ordered it immediately and wanted to try to fit it in to my 2018 reading. This is a middle grade graphic novel with a female protagonist, and I've read several graphic novels / graphic memoir in that category this year, and have liked them, but have not been sort of just, they didn't sit with me. They didn't stay with me for a very long time, no matter how good they were. This one, though, I just keep thinking about it, and it keeps bringing a smile to my face. This is about a 7th grade girl whose name I'm absolutely not going to remember, Danny. And she's now been put in a group that does not include any of her friends at school. So she is having to make new friends, and that's very difficult, particularly during the middle school years. And so she has this like magical notebook that if she draws something in it, it comes to life. You can probably see where this is going. She draws herself a best friend, and then we sort of discover the ways in which that is a good or not good idea. And then there's like some really fun, fantastical elements at the end where they all get magical girl powers and have to defeat a common enemy. It is quite a ride, quite a journey. Again, I smiled so hard through all of this. I want to read it a million more times, and it is absolutely one of the most joyous reading experiences I had in 2018, so it makes this list easy. The comic I am most surprised about making this list, and it's not that I don't love Marvel, DC, like superhero stuff, I do, but it's very rare for me to consider it the best stuff I read in a whole year, including all of the books, all 89 things I read. But this one just, again, it was a December read, and so maybe these are like getting a boost from recency bias, but I don't think so. I'm talking about the very first volume of Domino, written by Gail Simone, and I think it's not really super surprising when you consider how amazing Gail Simone is and how important she has been to comics storytelling, particularly at DC, and now she's working at Marvel. Domino is a mercenary for hire. Oh gosh. Much like Deadpool, they're friends, but this is not as like funny haha as Deadpool, and I don't think it's necessarily quite as dark as Deadpool. So this is like a kind of, I think it's easier and it would appeal to a broader audience than something like Deadpool. Domino is she's a mutant, and her power is luck. So basically she can't die because luck is always on her side. This is exploring, there's someone who wants her dead. And so it's kind of like who's gonna kill who first. And Domino is also dealing with some sort of very emotional things. She's having really bad migraines, which is a sort of physical thing she's dealing with. And she's found herself for the first time having two very, very good friends that she almost would consider family, and having these people to care about her, and that's feeling very new to her. She's dealing with a very tragic past. And so you have this really great female friendship element, and just other friendships too. I think that friendship is really important to this fairly dark story. But the thing, and this is going to include a spoiler for how these 5 or 6 issues, I think it's 6 issues in, so if you don't want to know, you know, bye. Domino, it defeats her enemy. Her enemy is down for the count, but still alive, and Domino has her guns. She has to decide whether to end the enemy, you know, to kill her enemy, or to let her live. And there is a man who she's kind of teamed up with, is having sort of romantical, lustful feelings for, who does not want her to kill. And then she looks back at her friends and she's basically like, I have to do this. And she, you know, you can tell like she really wants their approval more than anything. And they're just like, we understand, and they don't judge her. And that moment was such a good moment for me. And so Domino does end up killing her enemy. You know, and she didn't have to, but she makes this decision that she doesn't want to keep fighting this battle over and over and over again. And I really appreciated this comic for going there. I have found that a story element that I am really drawn to, and I don't necessarily know what this says about me, but I like when female characters murder. Like, I like murderous ladies. I like when a story lets them choose that path. And this, I just really appreciated this decision that Gail Simone had made, because so often I feel like there are stories where you're told someone's an assassin, or you're told they're really, really sort of, you know, murderous, but you don't ever see that on the page. And I am a real fan of it. It's where darkness lies, I know, but I really appreciated this. I love that it wasn't an easy decision. I love that it took something from her. Anyways, I've been sitting here thinking about this comic since I read it. I truly, truly love it, and can't wait for where the story goes from here. So it will be absolutely, I will be reading it in 2019. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about my YA. This is not a genre, it's a demographic, but you know, there are 2 YA picks as well. The first one is going to be YA fantasy, and that is 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I did not get to Crooked Kingdom before the end of the year. This is another book I read in December. Lots of December reads. I had a very good December. So when I was thinking about my favorite YA going into December, I was like, oh, it'll be the Raven cycle. I enjoyed that a lot, but then I read 6 of Crows, and I think because my expectations were so low, because I didn't like the Kristen trilogy, that this was able to just overcome. And I know this is widely beloved. I'm not going to talk about it much. Again, this has got female characters who will kill you, and I especially appreciate that in YA fantasy, because I feel like you're told someone is an assassin badass, and there's no assassinating going on, but there is here, and I loved it. And this is, as much as I love some other romance books, this might have my favorite romance in it. Kaz and Inej are just like lifetime OTP realness right here. Just all things. I love it. It's a high story, in case you didn't know. Really well done. And then I'm reading Crooked Kingdom and enjoying it. So my second and final YA pick, I believe, yes, is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I listened to this on audio because she reads it. She's a slam poet, and this is written in verse. And it is beautiful. It is very sort of slice of life about Dominican immigrants in New York. I'm going to say her name wrong. Xiomara is in high school. She is coming to terms with her body and the way others view her body, and liking a boy and what that means about her body. And she is using poetry to kind of explore these themes, and she's very much at an odds with her like devoutly religious Catholic mother. And there are some scenes in here that were just like, almost had to pull the car over and just sort of like breathe through. They were so intense, and I just think this was marvelous and absolutely deserving of the National Book Award, and a book I would recommend to literally anybody. This is lovely, and I'm so excited. She has a new book out in 2019. It's one of my most anticipated, and it's about food and cooking, so that's great. Perfect book. What more can you say? So now we're going to get into my romance pick of the year, and that is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hoang. You're going to see this on so many lists. I have been wading through some romance this year, trying to figure out what I like within the genre. I liked this a lot. I had a very personal response to this book. Our main character, Stella, is on the autism spectrum, and a lot of the ways she sort of, my brain doesn't work exactly like hers, but a lot of the ways, the thoughts she thinks about herself, I have thought about myself, and always have felt kind of lonely, are just not represented in literature that much. And so this book, I sobbed through so much of it because I was just like, I just connected with her more than I think any other character on this list. Stella is just someone I adore, and Michael is great and his family, and they're just, this is fantastic romance, and it's steamy, and I'm so glad they're gonna make a movie out of it. I'm so excited for the next book in this universe. I don't even, like, it's this book and the way I connect to Stella is really sort of beyond words for me, and I know that not everyone's gonna connect in that way, but I think a lot of people have been really cherishing this. I've seen this on multiple booktubers lists. So if you're wanting to try some really good romance, I mean, I just don't know how you could go wrong with this. And then I'm gonna put an urban fantasy on this. That's right, getting back to my roots. So this is Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. I have read so much urban fantasy in my life, like dozens and dozens of urban fantasy books in my lifetime, and it's one of those super comfort genres for me, especially when I was like in my 20s. And so going back into the genre this year, I wanted to choose something that felt new, and not quite, I mean, this still relies on a lot of the like urban fantasy tropes, but with the like native mythology, it feels like something I've never read before, and I love it for that. I thought it was such a fun story. I can't wait for the second book. I constantly think about this book. I read it about 6 months ago, and so it's still here in my brain, rattling around. And I guess I'm just a real true sucker for like the urban fantasy trope with the, you know, kind of female protagonist who is, you know, really got a tough shell on the outside, but, you know, is just a soft cinnamon bun on the inside, and thinks she's totally alone in the world, but of course she's not. And I just like those stories, and this is a really great one. So, yeah, if you want to dip your toes into some really well done urban fantasy, I think Trail of Lightning is where you should go. And my favorite fantasy of the year is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I have like 3 copies of this book. This is the UK cover. I chose this. I was a guest judge for Book of the Month Club, and I chose this as my pick and wrote about it. And it's such a quiet, wintry, like, sort of just slightly romantic, female-driven, lovely, just retelling. And I don't love retellings often, and I think this is one of the best I've ever read. It's really got really great religious themes. The way that 3 main female characters kind of represent different kinds of women. I just loved everything about this. I have a review on my channel. I have a review on my channel for a lot of these. Well, at least this one. I love this so much, you guys. And I know that not everyone does, but Spinning Silver wins it for me. I think it's leaps and bounds better than Uprooted, or it fits me better. And I can't wait for her to do more writing in like this retelling realm, because I finally feel like I have someone that I can trust with retelling. And now I'm going to move on to nonfiction. Their top 3 books of the year, and this is my like runner-up favorite nonfiction, and that is Rebecca Traister's Good and Mad, The Revolutionary Power of Women's Anger. That's what it says on the tin. Just Rebecca Traister, who's one of my favorite journalists, her exploration of the ways in which women's anger has sort of been the catalyst of a lot of political movements. She goes through a lot of the stuff that's happened recently in politics, allows the reader to be mad and just want to yell and punch things, and is very intersectional. It's great. And hearing her talk about it was great too. And it's a book that has the word fuck on it over and over and over again. It was made for me. Okay, so my top 2 favorite books of the year. I love them. I knew my nonfiction would be my favorite as soon as I read it. I had to think a little bit about the fiction pick, but I do think that it is ultimately the book I've loved the most. So for nonfiction, I picked This Will Be My Undoing by Morgan Jerkins, living at the intersection of Black, female, and feminist in white America. Her voice is so spectacular. Her honesty and her willingness to be so candid about her life and her emotions, and her perspective of the world is heartbreaking and amazing, and she's just one of the bravest writers I read this year. And I wish more people had read this. It's not long, but it is such a great collection of like memoir essays. She's writing more stuff. I follow her on Twitter, just anxiously waiting for like writing stuff. I just love her so much. If you're looking for sort of like a memoir that's really written more in like personal essays, please do yourself a favor and pick this guy up. It's so good. And so finally, my favorite fiction is historical fantasy, and it also has my favorite cover of the year. So we're just covering some bases here. And that is The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. Everything about this book is great. It's not perfect, because again, this is my favorites list. I mean, I wish Achilles' perspective had just been left out of this. But this is also, I struggle with Greek mythology retellings. I don't love Madeline Miller. I did read Circe this year. I've read The Song of Achilles. I've read some other stuff. I've always struggled with it, and for the first time I picked one up and just adored it from page 1. This follows the perspective of Briseis as her kingdom is ransacked by the Greeks as they make their way to Troy. She is taken as a war slave and given to Achilles as a war prize, and all of the terribleness of that. And I just think the balance she strikes between, I don't even know how to say it, like the way she like almost tips the scales in favor of romance, because Achilles he isn't the worst to her, but then always pulls them back and is able to tell 2 sides of a story all the time and have everything be so complex, and have Briseis like be someone you pity but someone you also grow angry at. She just does this back and forth balance, you know, of real humanity in this that I loved. And I feel like her prose is so simple and clear but so alive. Like, this book to me feels like it has a heartbeat. And I don't know how to explain it any other way than that. And I love it so much. And I don't know that I'll ever read Pat Barker again. I think most of her other books are about World War II or World War I. I don't know. And I don't really like World War books. So I hope maybe she writes some more Greek myth retelling, because this is just stunning. And you guys, the cover, I love it so much. It's simple, but like the different shades of blue and like the depth to it, and like the gold sparkles and the sweep of the dress, and the fact that her head's cut off. the fact that we're getting a female voice here. The book is called The Silence of the Girls, right? We're getting Briseis' voice, so she's not being silenced, but there are other women in this story being silenced. It's so good. I think it's so smart. I don't want to read it again, like right now. Anyways, those are my top 10 books of the year. Thank you for sticking through 20 minutes of me rambling, and I will talk to you guys next video.